Now, so far in the R36 restoration series, there's been a big focus on the underside of the car, treating the rust and just generally making it look a lot less like a car that's got nearly 200,000 miles on it. It has come up pretty well, and all that's left now is to apply that same level of attention to detail to the engine bay. So yeah, that's the plan for today's video, as well as actually making a start on the engine itself. Naturally, of course, I needed a variety of items, so I did what every DIY person does and headed over to eBay UK, who I'm pleased to say are also the sponsors for today's video. It's been awesome having them on board since the very first episode of this build, and whether it's something as simple as caliper paint or a complete set of suspension arms, you're bound to find everything you need on there. And better yet, with eBay's assured fit program, you've got the benefit of being able to just enter your reg and it'll bring up the items that fit your exact make and model, all from trusted sellers. And worst case it doesn't fit, you've got 30 days to return it, hassle free. We'll get into what parts I picked up later in the video, but first let's crack on with the messy work, and that's cleaning the engine bay. I decided to keep it simple and stocked up on some brake cleaner, a bunch of high quality microfiber towels, and a few brushes to agitate the dirt. Look, I'm no detailer, but this exact combos did the trick on the rest of the underside, so I'm sure it'll be fine for the remainder of the vehicle. But yeah, if you do want to be a bit fancier, there's tons of items to choose from on eBay's dedicated car cleaning page, all with at least 30% off, so head over to the link in my description, have a browse and get yourself ready for all those summer car shows. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it does feel good to be working on the Passat again. I know it has been a while since the previous episode, but I can see the finish line with this project. But yeah, before we actually begin cleaning, I want to remove a bunch of the stuff you see in the way. So for example, the fuse box, there's dirt tucked behind there. We've got the gearbox and the engine mounts, and also probably just vacuum up the loose dirt that's tucked behind the scuttle panel. Then we can actually blast it out with the air. But yeah, it's all easy to remedy, so let's get to work. Alright, time to get this mud off. See, I told you, a bit of brake cleaner, a basic brush, and a microfiber, and we can see that lovely blue again. We just need to do the rest of it. The only thing I'd say is it does dry quickly because brake cleaner does evaporate in a way. I don't know the best way to describe it. It just disappears. Now, the solution I found to this problem was to just simply spray whilst brushing. It made light work of all the thicker mud, but equally, because it does dry up quickly, it prevents you having a massive puddle on the floor, so a bit of a dual benefit. For the upper sections along the wings and the scuttle, I actually switched to water. The dirt wasn't that thick, but it was more caked on, if that makes sense. So having a liquid that stays on the surface longer just made the cleaning process a bit easier. Like I said, I'm just going with the flow here. There's no real science to what I'm doing. If it works and I see more blue, it's job done in my eyes. With the engine bay now looking nice and blue again, it's time we turn our attention to the various bits that we removed earlier in the video. Thankfully, nothing was actually damaged or rusty. It was just covered in 16-year-old spider webs and dirt. So yeah, here's another cleaning montage. Enjoy this one and I'll catch up with you folks in a second. Right then folks, so mammoth cleaning session over. That was around a day and a half worth of work that you just watched, but of course I compiled it into a nice lovely viewable montage. I've lost track of the amount of hours I've poured into this thing, but when you see results like that, it just makes it so worth it. Yeah. Very shiny, that's the best way I can describe it. Makes a change from the Scirocco, which doesn't actually have a shiny engine bay. The paint is not lacquered in the bay, whereas this is pretty much just like the body almost, or close enough. It's not perfect because of course it's old, so there's a few bits of surface rust here and there, which I may sort out at a later date. But it's all nice and solid, and crucially the tools that I used actually did the job. You probably could go the extra mile with some more detailed equipment, but I wanted to keep things simple on purpose. Of course, this bit in the scuttle was the worst, and we are missing paint now, but it's not rusting beneath it, and I don't really have any concerns of it rusting. Painting this may be a bit tricky back there, so I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. It all depends how many hours you want to put in. I could easily spend another week on this. Gladly. Now, in addition to all that stuff, you also saw me clean all of this stuff that you see here on the table. I thought I'd give you a nice little display as we do on this channel. Yeah, we'll start over here with the wiper motor. I didn't really have to clean that up as much as I did because it's a wiper motor and you're never going to see it. But it's nice to bring a bit of silver back and crucially remove all of the spider webs that were attached to it. Got the ECU tray as well, which came up pretty well. I actually took these little brackets off, cleaned them individually, brushed behind there. The secondary bracket. Got this scuttle trim as well, which normally sits in the corner there. I mean, look how shiny that is. I just wiped it with that microfiber cloth and a bit of water. That's another thing with the bay. The brake cleaner is good for the more tougher bits of dirt like what we saw around here. But with the bits on the side here, I actually preferred to use the water with the microfiber because it was just a bit easier to actually get rid of the dirt. Because water, of course, actually stays on there rather than evaporating quickly. But yeah, using both is what I preferred. Then of course we've got the guides for the main wiring harness. They came up pretty well as you'd expect. And then the washer bottle, which is split into two. This again, obviously is from 2008, so it's never going to be perfect. There's some bits of dirt that are caked on. Took off these little bits as well, clean them individually. You can see the VW part numbers. Now, whilst we have brought a lot of this stuff back to life, I have gone ahead and picked up two new items from eBay, and that's an engine and gearbox mount. And the main benefit of these is it'll essentially tighten up the car because it's done just under 190,000 miles. All the rubbers pretty much perished at this point. So yeah, it's not just a visual thing because it's all shiny aluminium. I could have just wire brushed the old ones in that case, but you can't wire brush the rubber that's in there as much as I'd love to. I'm pretty sure these are the original ones as well because that looks like an 08 there and it's a 2008 vehicle, so pretty good that it's lasted that long. Naturally, of course, all of these items that I'm showing you in today's video are going to be linked down below in the description, so make sure you head over and check them out on eBay if you want the same thing. But yeah, without further ado, let's get all of this stuff back in the engine bay where it belongs, and then we can proceed with the next part of the video. Gearbox mount can go straight in. Do these up by hand first. Engine mount, 40 newmeters and 90 degrees. Done. Yep, connectors all clean. Next, it was time to move on to the engine itself. Those of you who have watched the last episode will know that we removed it for a couple of reasons. One of them being to check the condition of the timing chain. It's a common issue on VR6s as they get older, but there's no real set mileage in my opinion. You can actually check the tolerances on the diagnostic tool, but I prefer to just listen out for a more pronounced rattle. This engine in particular is in complete running order, but it's slightly noisier on a cold start. For all we know, it could probably go on for many more miles like this, but because we're doing a restoration project and it is on just under 190,000, we might as well have a look whilst it's all at the car. Now, the chain itself is actually located on the right side of the engine, and to access it, we're going to have to remove the gearbox. Now, I haven't actually split a DSG gearbox from an engine before. I've seen it done many times in front of me, but physically doing it is going to be the first time today. Obviously, I've got all the tools ready for the job, but we're just going to take it methodically. A lot of these bolts to remove the gearbox are quite big, so I can't imagine we have any issues with them stripping out. out or whatnot. And yeah, once we got the box off, we'll get the engine back onto the trolley because it's a bit less rotatey, let's say. But this crane is very good. If you do fancy getting the same, I got it off eBay. It said on the listing that there was a bunch of them sold, so I imagine there's a lot of people out there with the same job. I like the fact that it's in grey, it's pretty cool. So removal time. I didn't really have a fixed plan, being that it was my first attempt, and therefore I just decided it was best to begin with the cooler lines because they're in the way. There's two rubber hoses going into the DSG cooler, and they actually fed off this main hard pipe, which also happens to be on our to-do list from before because as you can see, it's dissolving in real time. Right, smashed the socket in there, so that shouldn't move. What little rusty bracket is secured well, isn't it? One big piece that is. Next up was the starter motor, as that also needs to come out as part of this process. There's two bolts holding it in, and then you can just work your way around the mating point of the engine and gearbox. I didn't actually look at a diagram with this, I just went with the flow as per usual, but it's pretty simple once you get started. First bolt out. Second bolt. Another 16 under here, a bit trickier to film. So I do want to leave the transfer box attached ideally because you can do it this way, taking them both off. But I'm just having a look because there's a few bolts that obviously are going from that into the gearbox. But I think that one there is going into the engine. These two on the top, I don't think we're going to have to worry about. And then there's that one there. Okay, got a few bolts left. So let's get this little table position because I'm going to drop the gearbox onto that. Let's go. Now I think I've literally just got 1, 2 left and they should split. There's this bracket holding the transfer box to the engine. Nearly forgot that. There we are. Okay, so that's the gearbox successfully separated from the engine with the transfer case attached. This is how I'm remembering the order of the bolts, so a little idea. Remember which way you orientate them as well. So yeah, first gearbox pull in the bag, not difficult at all. You just need to take your time and make sure you've got every bolt out. Like I had most of the main ones out, but the bracket holding the sort of little cover with the transfer box was still attached. And if I did remove that, I'd be struggling. But yeah, as you can see, it's a bit of a mess this. That's obviously the clutches in there. There's lots of caked on dirt. So we will need to give this a thorough clean at some point. In terms of the flywheel, that is the OEM dual mass as far as I can see. This car does have a slight rattle when it's idling. It's not huge. I've had that on other cars and they've carried on and made power even, so I'm not too concerned with it. I don't know if that plays normal. You guys can let me know in the comments if it's worth replacing that. We're just going to remove it today because I'll obviously have to order that in and what have you. And the bolts, which I'm probably going to get freshened up also. There we go, bit of effort that. Rear main seal, thankfully no leak there. Right then, R36 engine successfully placed on the table. If you know, you know. I need to take all of this off again. Some connectors on the side and the upper timing case. Get the vacuum pump off. Easy. Right, so upper timing cover, this does split from the rest, it's a single panel. I'm guessing there's all of these little screws on the perimeter. An M8, yes, it's an M8. So pretty small little screws. There you are. Lovely. Yeah, it does feel good to finally see a VR6 timing chain with my own eyes, because we've probably got, well, we've got 3 at the moment that we need to attend to. This one, the Scirocco behind me, and of course the R32. So it's going to have to get done at some point. So I'm glad we're getting practice now on the R36. Now we're not going to be doing the actual job in today's video because we have done a fair bit and there's a lot of moving components and parts everywhere, and I want to do a dedicated timing chain video. It's going to be the next episode, but I thought we'd get a nice brief look at whether or not anything's blatantly broken. I remember there being a bit more chain slack before when we first took the rocker cover off, but that seems to have gone. The tensioner is still in. That's actually the old one. We did attempt to try and change that out for a new one because on the forums they say just change the upper tensioner and it fixes a rattle. It actually made it worse for me. That presses down onto that rail, which obviously tensions that side of the chain. Obviously there's the crank, got the lower tensioner and then another guide rail, but nothing seems to be broken. You can hear a bit of slack there. But I don't know if that's because obviously he hasn't got any oil pressure at the minute. Maybe that's just how they're meant to be. Like I said, it was only on cold start really that this engine had a problem. Now from my understanding, the main real difference between doing a timing chain on an R36 engine like this and an R32 is that we have the addition of the high pressure fuel pump, which is on the front of the engine. You'll be familiar with that with your TFSIs and what have you, but with this, it is timed off the chain, so that's it right there. So you have to lock it into place in addition to also getting the other locking plates on top. And conveniently, both of those tools are in this timing chain toolkit from eBay, designed for VR6 and W engines and what have you. It's actually got 2 plates, we only need 1. And we've also got the high pressure fuel pump locking plate, so that's going to come in very handy. We've also got an OE timing chain kit to actually do the job. So in here, we've got the various chains, guides and what have you. So it's a little sneak peek of the next episode. But yeah, we've pretty much got parts all over the unit. We've got the gearbox, which we'll need to tidy up also. We've got a flywheel here with the bolts. Obviously, I'm going to get new bolts, but I'm still undecided on whether or not I replace that because who knows, maybe down the line we stick a DQ500 in it, in which case it would be a waste of money, but we won't get too carried away just yet. Upper and lower timing case covers, rocker cover, and of course we can't forget the engine bay, which is looking nice and blue and eagerly anticipating the return of its engine. But yeah, folks, I think we'll wrap it up here. Let me know if you enjoyed it by dropping a like on it. Also subscribe if you are new. And of course, big thanks to eBay for sponsoring today's video. As mentioned, all of the items I've showed you throughout today's episode will be linked down below in the description. And remember, with eBay Assured Fit, all you've got to do is enter your registration and it'll bring up the right parts for the right price. And if they don't fit, you've got 30 days to return them. So yeah, take it easy, folks. I'll see you very soon where we attempt to do the timing chain on an R36 engine.